on behalf of the Chamber, welcome to this special Pacesetter event, doing business with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Massachusetts. This is a series that we had intended to launch, and Blue Cross Blue Shield was going to be our initial launch back pre-COVID. We were going to do a live event, but you know, the world took over, and now we're doing these virtually, and they've been a great success. And I'm very pleased to have this session with Blue Cross Blue Shield, because as I think about the companies of Greater Boston and Massachusetts, this is one that really gets it, and I think you're going to hear that throughout the presentation. You know, what's behind doing business with? We talked a lot to the minority supplier community about Pacesetters and about access to contracts and doing business with the larger companies in Massachusetts. And one of the things that they asked for or felt we could help with is this issue of transparency and how you do business in certain industries, how you do business with certain companies. Every company, every industry does it differently. Procurement is thought to be sort of something universal, but everyone has their own processes and procedures. They all buy different things on different schedules. So taking the mystery out of that, being more transparent about it, is the purpose behind this program. And we've done 4 or 5 of these already. We're going to continue to do them for the rest of the year and throughout 2021. With individual companies that genuinely have signed up to do more business with the diverse supply community. And the idea is that procurement can be used as an equity tool in dealing with the wealth gap in Massachusetts. So that's what this is all about. And I think that everyone in this Zoom meeting knows that now more than ever, this is a place we need to focus. I do want to thank our sponsors for all of our economic opportunity work, including Pacesetters at the Chamber, and that is John Hancock and Eastern Bank, you know, 2 other companies that clearly get it. We're appreciative of their continued sponsorship and partnership with the Chamber on these programs. Want to flag for everyone that this webinar is being recorded and will be made available on the Chamber's YouTube page shortly after the presentation. The way this is going to work is I'm going to introduce our speakers from Blue Cross Blue Shield. They have a presentation ready for you, and then there'll be a Q&A session. So use the Q&A feature. Be careful to select all panelists. Or if you'd be more comfortable, email the questions to chamberprograms@bostonchamber.com, and we'll make sure to get them in the queue. With that, I'm pleased to introduce our speakers today, starting with Daylana Ervin-Parker, the Director of Budget and Supplier Diversity at Blue Cross Blue Shield of Massachusetts. In Daylana's supplier diversity role, she's responsible for leading and executing strategies that advance procurement of products and services from diverse vendors. She's also responsible for creating programming that helps diverse vendors build capacity and sustainability. So I'm sure there'll be an interesting conversation there, that Blue Cross has taken this beyond just doing individual contracts, but actually partnering with their supplier community to build capacity. Thank you for joining us today, Daylana. We also have John Lombard, Director of Budget and Corporate Procurement for Blue Cross Blue Shield of Massachusetts. John's responsible for helping Blue Cross Blue Shield create and execute an administrative budget of over $1 billion, which includes more than 12 business units. It'll be interesting to hear from John how all of that is coordinated across business units. In addition, he leads a procurement team that completes approximately 500 purchasing deals annually. So thank you for joining us, John. Next, we're pleased to welcome Deb Kiernan, Senior Director of Corporate Real Estate at Blue Cross Blue Shield of Massachusetts. Deb's been in corporate real estate for over 20 years. She's joined Blue Cross Blue Shield, or been with Blue Cross Blue Shield since 2004. In her current role, is Senior Director. Deb oversees 1 million square feet of real estate. She's responsible for all of Blue Cross Blue Shield's safety and security operations, facilities management, real estate and design, corporate hospitality operations, mail and copy services. Wow. Thank you for joining us, Deb. We also have Owena Farrell, Senior Supplier, Diversity Analyst at Blue Cross Blue Shield, maybe a person who is familiar to some people in this audience as the Supplier Diversity Analyst. Owena engages with the supplier diversity community in hosting information sessions, presentations, and workshops about their team's procurement and spending opportunities. And I understand Owena is going to facilitate the Q&A format later on in the conversation. Thank you for joining us. Continuing with our introductions, we're joined today by Stephanie Browne, Vice President of Talent and Acquisition and Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer at Blue Cross Blue Shield of Massachusetts. I should have said the award-winning Stephanie Browne. Stephanie's the recipient of Diversity Global Magazine's 2020 Top 10 Influential Women in Diversity and the 2019 Mass Technology Leadership Council's Mosaic Award for all of her efforts to diversify corporate America. She'll be joining us today to share Blue Cross Blue Shield of Massachusetts' ongoing efforts to help address racial inequality and advance health equity. Thank you for joining us, Stephanie. And kicking us off in the program today is Jim Lenahan, Vice President, Financial Services of Blue Cross Blue Shield of Massachusetts. Jim is responsible for administration and execution of the company's $1 billion operating budget, the procurement process and activities, as well as corporate real estate. Jim provides stewardship of the Finance Development Program, a rotational program designed to match strong performers with critical functions and leaders to provide a pipeline of talent for the company. What an impressive group of people that Blue Cross Blue Shield of Massachusetts has made available to us in this audience today, and I'm grateful for that. And with that, I'll turn it over to Jim.
Jim, thank you so much. Thank you. We're really excited to be here. I want to just take a minute to thank Jim. I want to thank all the members of the Chamber and the Pacesetters program for all your help. We know that people think that when you move these events online that they become easier, and we know that's not the case. A ton of work went into this. We're excited to be here, and we really appreciate all that hard work. So good morning, everyone. I'm thrilled to be here. As Jim mentioned, my name is Jim Lenahan. I'm Vice President of Financial Services. I've been with Blue Cross and Blue Shield for 15 years. 10 of those I've been working on supplier diversity. I want to tell you a little bit about Blue Cross. Hopefully you have heard of us. We are the biggest health insurer in the state with just under 3 million members. We've got about 3,000 employees. We headquartered in Boston with major campuses in Hingham and Quincy, as well as a satellite office in Worcester. Of course, right now, all of those are pretty much empty and we're all working from home, but we look forward to being back there someday. Supplier diversity and diversity in general has been a program of ours for over 20 years. It's something that's very important, and that really starts with our CEO and our board and trickles right on down through our leadership. When we think about supplier diversity, we've done tons of work to try to make it a part of the way we just do business. We really don't want it to be considered a standalone program. It's just kind of who we are and what we do. And you're going to hear a little bit about how we do that today. I mentioned supply diversity. Diversity in general is a huge priority for our CEO in particular. You'll be hearing from our Chief Diversity Officer a little bit later, and she'll talk to you about some of the important initiatives that we've got going on in the company to help support issues like racial equity, social justice, health disparities. We see supply diversity in programs like the Pacesetters as being supportive of all of these, but there's one other key benefit that we see at the company in this program, and that's really it's good business, right? So if we continue to just go to the same old vendors and buy the same old things, we can expect the same old results. And we know in a competitive market like ours, it's just not going to cut it. We're always looking for new ideas, new concepts. And when I look at the list of people who are on here today, I know they're entrepreneurs, they're innovators, they're risk takers. we're really excited to hear from you. We're hoping that you have that idea that we haven't even thought of yet, or that thing, that capability that we need. So that's really why this is important, in addition to all the social issues. It's just good business. It's not only the right thing to do for us, it's also the smart thing to do. So you're going to hear a little bit about how to do business with Blue Cross from a great panelist Jim just introduced. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our Director of Budget and Supplier Diversity. She is also award-winning. I'm not going to even try to name all the awards that she has won, but she's certainly a powerhouse in the field of supplier diversity. She's my friend and teammate, Daylana Ervin-Parker.
Thank you for that warm introduction, Jim. Good morning, everyone. I am Daylana Ervin-Parker, and I am the Director of Budget and Supply Diversity at Blue Cross. As Jim mentioned, Jim Linehan, as he mentioned, supply diversity is a key part of our business strategy here at the company. And it's one of the reasons why we partner with the Pacesetters team. It is important for Blue Cross Blue Shield. You know, Blue Cross is committed to having, or to maximizing diverse representation in our supply chain. And that includes MBEs like many of you listening in today. And so we're excited to be here today to kind of give you a glimpse into our procurement process, as well as our DEI practices. And I'm looking forward to a great panel discussion. I will be moderating in a panel today with my colleagues. And with that, I'll introduce the panel. Our first panelist is Stephanie Browne. As you heard, she's the VP of Talent Acquisition and the company's Chief Diversity Officer. Hello, Stephanie.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good. Our next panelist is Deb Kiernan. And Deb is the Senior Director of Corporate Real Estate. She actually oversees one of the largest functions here at Blue Cross Blue Shield. So we're looking forward to hearing from Deb as well. And rounding out the panel is John Lombard. He is the Director of Budget and Corporate Procurement. And he'll be providing some insight about our procurement process. And last but not least is Awena Farrell. Awena is our Senior Supply Diversity Analyst, and she will be helping to facilitate the Q&A segment of this event today. And so with that, I'd like to welcome the panel, and let's begin. Stephanie, I'm actually gonna start with you. So can you tell us a little bit about how diversity, equity, and inclusion are embedded into the culture here at Blue Cross?
Sure, thank you. Thank you so much, Daylana, for inviting me to be in this panel and welcome everyone on the call. So if you can move to the slide that talks a little bit about the demographics of the United States. So as we think about diversity and inclusion at Blue Cross, it's all around about the business case. And if you look at what is happening in our society today, we are becoming a more diverse nation as we speak. Demographics say that, you know, by 2045, the world will be, the United States will be majority non-white. If you bring that down into Massachusetts and you look at what's going to happen between now and 2030, it's following that same trend. And then when we think about our customers at Blue Cross, we're thinking about it from that perspective as well. Even today, a big portion of our membership, their primary language is Spanish. And so if we think about what we need for suppliers and what we need to think about as an organization around our staff and the way we do our business, diversity, equity, and inclusion is part of our mission. So can you move on to the next slide, please? So when we think about diversity at Blue Cross, we think about it from the aspect of, diversity is what breeds innovation, and that's what actually will help us fuel our growth as a company. We always talk about being blue for life when we think about our members, and that actually takes a strategy and takes purposeful work. And when we think about how we vision this in the company, we want it part of our DNA. We want to make sure that we're an inclusive and diverse organization that really takes advantage of the uniqueness of our associates, the community, and our partners. And so our strategy is built on 5 pillars. And each one of those pillars is responsible for thinking about the work that they do through the lens of diversity. So if you think about commerce, that's where all of our products and services are created, and how we serve our accounts and our members. If you think about community, it's what we're putting back into the community, because we believe our community are our stakeholders as it relates to making sure that our community is healthy as well. And then if you think about career, it's all about respecting and retaining the right talent, and making sure that that talent is representative of the folks that we serve. And, you know, as we think about culture and culture around cultural competency for our organization, how do we make sure that the people who interact with us are competent, that we understand who they are and what they need from a healthcare perspective. And then finally with care is probably our newest pillar. It came about post all of the changes and all the challenges that we've had over the last year around health disparities within our communities of color. It talks about, really about, what do we need to do differently to make sure that a pandemic like the one we're still in doesn't affect our members and the people that live and work in Massachusetts. And so our goal is to be a leader in trying to eradicate health disparities within the Commonwealth. And that's the work that we do every day. So turning to the work that we're talking about today, in order for us to really be a strong community partner and help with all the work that we do in the commerce space on our pillars, it's important that our partnerships are diverse. And so, Daylana, as we think about that, I'm going to turn it back over to you to talk a little bit about how we do that.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for your comments, Stephanie. I just want to echo something that you said, in that, Blue Cross is truly committed to diversity, inclusion, and equity in all aspects of the organization. And that also includes our procurement function. And that's going to lead me into my next question for John. John, can you tell us about the procurement process here at Blue Cross, and just kind of walk us through the different stages, if you will?
Sure. First of all, good morning. It's great to be here with all of you. Let me take a few minutes and just talk about how we're structured from a buying standpoint at Blue Cross, and I'll walk you through some of the nuts and bolts of what we look for with vendors when we're purchasing products and services from them. What you see up on the screen is a commodities list. I'll get to that in a few minutes, but as a backdrop to what I'm saying, these are some categories that we're currently purchasing services and products for through diverse suppliers. So I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. First, let me just say that we are a fairly large company with a $1.1 billion budget. About half of that is staffing, and so we do end up purchasing about $250 to $500 million in any given year of products and services from vendors. The way that we're structured internally is we do have a dedicated procurement function. We have about 20 FTEs, 20 people that work full-time on procuring goods and services, and those people tend to be a liaison between the vendors and our business leaders. In procurement, we help to define what that leader needs in terms of the scope, the detail, so that we can pass that along to you as a vendor. You can bid on it. We help to source vendors. Oftentimes leaders come to us and they know what they need, but they don't know the vendors that are out there in the marketplace. And so that's where we work with supplier diversity, our supplier diversity team, and our own sourcing professionals to understand the vendors that are out there in the marketplace and include them in our RFPs. We help the business areas run the RFPs, all the nuts and bolts of putting a request out there, receiving bids, scheduling presentations and so forth. And then we help the business owners, the business leaders negotiate the final contracts. So in procurement, we can influence the decisions, but we are not the decision makers. The real decision makers are our business leaders. So we've got several hundred throughout the company that are in charge of all sorts of things, from facilities to IT to marketing. And they are the ones that are your direct customers. They are the decision makers. So it's an important population to think about, but oftentimes you'll be interacting through a procurement professional here at Blue Cross. We'll be that liaison for you to the business leader. Other influencers to keep in mind, we have a legal department that takes a look at all of our deals to make sure all the correct language is installed in our contracts, that our vendors are doing business by the law and doing business ethically. We also have a risk department that will take a look at all of our vendors that where we share information, particularly personal health information or personal information about members. Health insurance, data security is really of paramount importance to us. So we need to make sure that if we are engaging with a vendor where we need to share data, that vendor is going to keep the data secure. So there's extra focus when we're data sharing. We also have an insurance function that makes sure that all of our vendors have the correct insurance needed. And I'll go over what those requirements are in a second. And our finance department also plays a large role in all of our deals, helping us to understand bids that come in, normalize them so we can compare vendors from one to the other, and then helping us to negotiate contracts. So those are the major players. I would say that in any large company, most will be set up this way, where you have a dedicated procurement function, business leaders that make the actual buying decisions, and then other interested parties such as legal, finance, and insurance. So what we'll talk about today is specific to Blue Cross, but I think you'll find you can use the information when dealing with other larger companies. In terms of the process, we start with the business owner having a need for a product or service. They engage our internal procurement department. Again, we go back and forth with them to understand the scope so that we have a clear idea of what they're looking to purchase. We know who to reach out to. We then either will pursue an RFP or a direct buy. If we do an RFP, they tend to be for larger projects, $100,000 plus. In those cases, we always look to include at least one diverse supplier that will be invited to participate. And we've got a very good track record of doing that. We round out with other vendors that need to be invited, and we submit to them, our requirements. We give an opportunity for them to ask questions and provide a written response. Ultimately, 2 to 3 will be selected to give presentations to our business owners, and then we'll make a selection and award the business to somebody. Later on in the panel, we'll talk about how we go about making that decision. And just a few other quick nuts and bolts. So the commodity slide that you see in front of you, again, this is where we're currently purchasing from diverse suppliers. So we've got a wide breadth of things. I will say that we, as an insurance company, tend to purchase more services than goods. But we've got everything on here from marketing to IT, temporary staffing, permanent staff placement, and facilities management. I will say the facilities management bucket is where we've got some Pacesetter vendors that we're currently doing business with as well. I mentioned earlier insurance minimums. So we ask that you have commercial liability of $2 million, aggregate $1 million per incident, umbrella liability of $2 million, aggregate $1 million per incident, And depending on the services, we may require some other types of insurance, errors and omissions, and cyber liability. I already talked about the security that's involved. If we're doing a project with you that involves data sharing, we're going to ask that you have documented procedural controls such as use of passwords and so forth. If you're going to do work with us on site, we ask that you have background checks, annual criminal background checks. We'll also take a look at, for larger projects, financial viability and whether or not you are a stable company financially, so that we know that we can rely on you to provide the service going forward. And lastly, we do have a pretty lengthy contract. We've got a lot of terms and conditions, so we always recommend that you have a lawyer on your side. Be prepared to review that and give you counsel on how to proceed with the negotiation.
Thank you for that insight, John. That was very thorough. I just want to bring everyone's attention. In the chat function, Awena just put in the link to our vendor portal. So we have a vendor portal that we use on the supply diversity side to look for diverse vendors, in addition to using other databases. But just wanted to kind of bring that to your attention, that in the chat function, there is a link to the vendor portal. I will just actually add to what John said, and the vendor portal is important at Blue Cross Blue Shield. I know a lot of the suppliers here, please register in the portal, and then it kind of goes into a black hole someplace. But our portal is actually used for our RFPs. Our process is automated, so it does get sent to you through our vendor portal. So that link is important. Next, I'm actually gonna bring Deb into the conversation. Deb, as you heard earlier, has responsibility for one of the biggest functions at the company, which is our real estate function. And we just heard from John about the procurement process and the different stages of it. And that's the technical side of the procurement process. But there's also what I call the subjective, softer side, which is the vendor selection process. And so Deb has successful partnerships with many of several of the Pacesetter vendors. And so Deb, I'm just gonna ask you, what do you look for when you're choosing a vendor? And if you could just let us know, what do you look for when you're choosing a vendor?
Sure. Good morning, everyone, first of all. I think what we're always looking for is how are you different from your competition? What do you bring to the table that's different, that would, change our decision-making? What type of relationship did you establish while we were meeting? Would you be a good partner to us? Of course, experience is always important. What type of experience do you have? Is it with a company the size of Blue Cross Blue Shield? Doesn't necessarily have to be, depending on what you are offering, what your company does, but it is important to know what did that experience teach you and how can that benefit you in our relationship? So those are the crux of those types of decisions. It's more of just like you said, Daylana, is how does it make you feel when you're at the table, when you're sitting across from this person? Do you know that they're going to support you and support the needs of the company in a way that you expect? And like you said, we do have several relationships with Pacesetter suppliers. We have ERB facility services, ACP facility services, BPV transportation. So, it was something in those meetings with those folks that we kind of knew this is going to work out for us. This is going to be the vendor that we want to go with. And it's been very successful.
Great. So those are good points. So, being able to differentiate yourself and, being able to present your value proposition, that sounds like some of the important things that we look for in a vendor. John and Stephanie, I'll ask both of you the same question. Just because you are responsible for business units as well, and you do have procurement responsibilities, what do you look for when you're choosing a vendor? What criteria? Stephanie, I'll start with you, and then John, we'll go to you. Okay.
Sure, Daylana, thanks. So, you know, in the talent space, it's really important for me to have a partner, someone who actually really understands the goals that we're trying to achieve as an organization. And so I really value someone who really read, if we're doing an RFP, who really read the RFP and not as just trying to sell me what they have to sell me, but actually thought about how it connected to the goals that we have as an organization. And I would also say, you know, there are multiple levels of diversity. And so, you know, I know we have the different categories of diversification. And so I like to see diversity across all of those layers sitting across the table from me. So that's important for me as well. And I think, you know, one of the things we talked about when we were thinking about kind of what really makes it a company cross over the line is that, you know, we talk about scale because we're such a large organization and there are things that we have to think about when we're bringing on a partner. But, you know, learning to partner with your other partners in the diversity space is also important. So if you can't handle it all by yourself, then find someone who will partner with you to handle a potential opportunity, because that also tells us that you're thinking strategically. And that's also a good thing for us.
And John, how about you?
Yeah, I just want to reinforce what Deb and Stephanie said about, you know, when I sit in some of these deliberations as a procurement person and hear the business owners talking about who they liked and didn't like in presentations and written responses, it really does focus on how closely does the vendor match up with what we need? How much did they pay attention to the questions? Did they ask us questions? Vendors are often really successful if they can ask us questions, clarifying questions about what we meant in an RFP, and then they can tailor their answers or presentations accordingly. It really shows that the vendor is interested in providing us with what we're looking for. Where things don't tend to go so well is, you know, we understand vendors have to respond to a lot of RFPs, and there may be a lot of similar information that they provide from one to the next, but it does tend to show up that, all right, well, they didn't really answer our question here. They kind of gave us something they probably wrote for somebody else. And it does tend to be a bit of a turnoff. So really paying attention to what we're looking for and matching your responses and your capabilities to that is critical. Obviously, if you have any other experience with insurance or health insurance, we've got lots of sister Blue Cross Blue Shield plans across the country. And if you've done business with any of those, it tends to be a bit of a leg up. We might pay a little bit more attention. And so I would say those are kind of the primary drivers.
Daylana, there's one other thing that I thought that, you know, might be valuable too. We know that you are smaller businesses and that in some cases, and that, you know, the terms we might ask you to abide by may not work for you. It may be thinking things that you have to do in order to prepare and stand up an account like us. And so I think, you know, it doesn't hurt to ask for what you need. So if there is something different about the terms that you want to have that we're not potentially putting out there, because the guys in John's area, they don't play. they're working on behalf of the company, and you know, I've seen them at work when they're, you know, negotiating. But you know, sometimes the owner of the area might bend a little bit if they feel comfortable and they're confident that you can deliver. So I would say, you know, don't, you know, create that relationship so you can ask those questions, or or ask for help in how payment might be scheduled.
Okay.
Just to add on to that, I will say, I presented sort of our nuts and bolts earlier of insurance requirements and other things, but everything is negotiable. We need you. We need you to do something for us that we can't do ourselves, and so you've got some wiggle room when negotiating with us.
That's a good point, John. You absolutely do, for the suppliers that are listening, and you do have some negotiation room there. I will just add, in terms of, giving you some, I guess, success factors, be ready for the opportunity. Be ready for the opportunity, because the opportunity can come up. We do have a schedule of procurement opportunities of buying of what we're going to source for, but throughout the year, opportunities do come up, and so I would encourage you to reach out to Owena and myself. Our contact information will be on the screen at the end, but it's here right now, actually. But yeah, so I would say, start building a relationship with us, because you never know. With that, I'm actually going to turn it over to Owena to start the Q&A segment. I want to make sure we get your questions answered. You heard from us, so I will turn it over to Owena.
Awesome. Thank you to the panelists for the wisdom you've shared with us today. So we received some questions prior to this time frame. So I'm going to direct some of the questions and then go to the ones in the chat after, if that's okay. So one of the questions that we received, and I'll direct this one to Daylana, it says, our business, Coils to Locks, is a B2B wholesale medical wig distributor of coily curly wigs for Black women losing their hair due to chemotherapy that can be purchased with health insurance at cancer center hospitals and medical salons. Are there specific ways in which we can partner with Blue Cross to raise awareness of this service with patients and healthcare providers connected with their plan through marketing materials? And then are there ways to partner that we may not be aware of on the service that we provide?
Okay. So that's an interesting question, because that would be on our medical provider side of the business. And I don't know much about that side, but what I can tell you is that, my first question would be to you, are you credentialed? Are you credentialed as a prosthetic provider? Because I think in this case, the wig becomes the prosthetic for a cancer patient. And so I do know that for Blue Cross Blue Shield, all our providers are credentialed. I think that's a starting point, is first getting credentialed. And then you can certainly reach back out to me or Owena, and then we can kind of put you in contact with the provider side of our business. It probably would fall more along the lines of the ancillary provider side of our business, and get you connected that way.
There also may be an opportunity through the health engagement space as well. I don't know if we actually do any, I'm trying to think if we do any storefront type things, like, providing insight into that. But there's probably areas in the product and marketing product space that there may be a link as well.
Okay, well, that's perfect. So yes, so definitely reach out to me and Owena, and we can at least put you in contact with two areas within the company that can help you kind of address that question.
Thank you to you both. And the next question I'll direct to John, but Stephanie and Deb, after you can also chime in. I know there's like a lot of questions about opportunities. So are there any opportunities in the pipeline for 2021? Do you know of any that you can share with us? John, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I saw this question in advance and I tried to think through how to answer it. So I just can give you the scope of what we purchase. So we've got about 1,500 transactions per year. I lead one team that does about 500 of those, but as a company, we do about 1,500 transactions per year. Again, they're very service, we tend to purchase more services than goods. But all that to say is there's always some sort of an opportunity popping up. And rather than me go, give you a list of all 1,500, some of them we don't even know about right now. They'll come to fruition as the year progresses. I think it's best to reach out to Daylana and Alina, and then I can work with them. And so you can show us what you provide as a service or a good, and then we can look at when that particular buying need is coming up. We've always got something in the pipeline. So next year in 2021, we're going to have another 1,500 deals that we'll make with different suppliers. So there's going to be plenty of opportunity, but you really do need to reach out and make yourself known, make your services and products known to us so that we can we have you in mind when the business leader comes to us and says, I'm ready to buy this or that.
Awesome. Stephanie and Deb, would you like to chime in?
I was going to say, strategically, what we're really focused on in 2021 is around a lot of the work we're doing around customer experience. And a lot of our work is focused on thinking about how we engage and interact with our diverse populations. So our marketing and customer experience officers are really thinking about, what skills do we have inside the organization and what skills do we need to contract with. So you saw on that list that we've gone out from a marketing perspective to find diverse partners to help us with language and content and tools as we think about the work we need to do with our company. And then I would say on the talent side, I don't do a lot of outside staffing because we have an MSP right now that really handles the majority of our contract help. But periodically I do need support on the executive side for staffing. And so, that just kind of depends on me knowing you ahead of time. And when something comes up, we look for partners because it's really important from a diversity perspective as we're doing hiring. So those are kind of the three areas that I would say are really hot and think what we're thinking about for 2021.
From a corporate real estate perspective, we always have dozens of contracts that, expire on an annual basis, and it can run the gamut from cafe services to pest control to general R&M. So I just kind of want to echo what John said, get registered, reach out to Blue Cross Supply Diversity. If we don't know you exist, it's going to be really hard for us to find you. If we're looking for a different vendor or, and we don't always do an RFP if something is just over $100,000. We'll do RFIs or quotes or, all sorts of just research on companies that are well below that dollar amount because we want to know who's out there. And the other thing in corporate real estate is that just because I oversee 1 million square feet doesn't mean every contract is for 1 million square feet. We have had opportunities where we have actually split the business and had multiple vendors do the same type of service at different buildings. For example, landscaping services, we had several vendors come to the table We liked two in particular. We really didn't want to choose between them. So we made the operational decision to have different landscapers at different buildings. And that provided us with a real benefit of flexibility. So instead of relying on one vendor for the whole portfolio, now we had two vendors, and in the instance that one for some reason may not be able to perform, we have someone else to fall back on. So I think that there are a lot of hidden opportunities that if you register with us, they could be presented. You'd be surprised. It could be the whole corporation support, or it could be particular to a region of where one of our buildings are.
All right. Thank you. Your questions, we see them and we thank you for your questions. However, we are at time, but we will respond to all of the questions that were sent through the chat box and through the private messages. We will respond to them and get back to you at another time. But I'm just gonna say thank you to our panelists for your amazing comments and for sharing all the tips. And also thank you to the Chamber team for allowing us this opportunity to share with you how to do business with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Massachusetts. So now I'm going to turn it back over to Mr. Jim Rooney, who will give our closing remarks.
Okay, thank you, Owena, and what a great conversation. I mean, the passion, the knowledge, the intentionality that came through in these presentations was really impressive. And from my perspective, as someone said, you're all award-winning as I think about this group of people. But also in terms of this issue of procurement and diversity, I do have to give a shout out to your CEO, Andrew Dreyfus. You know, this does not happen in a business unless there's leadership at the top. And it's clear that Andrew provides that within the organization. A couple of reflections from the conversation. You know, John mentioned that in the process, there's legal documents and there's insurance requirements and so forth. I did want to connect a few dots for our audience. The Chamber is stood up a program with some of our companies here in Massachusetts called Small Business Strong. And within that, there's free business advice and specific functional advice. For example, we have about 20 lawyers from the big law firms in Boston who are available to provide free advice. So we know that, you know, bidding on potentially a Blue Cross Blue Shield of Massachusetts contract and getting the legal document that John referenced, you might think, do I make the, you know, spend a couple of $1,000s on a lawyer, and you might not feel like that's a good investment in this moment. Go on Small Business Strong's website. We'll provide you with a lawyer, and we'll provide you with folks that can help you think through how to respond to that RFP if you just don't have the wherewithal. So the other thing I wanted to pick up on is, I don't know that the word was used, but I felt like it was at least implied, is, you know, be persistent. You know, don't look at an RFP and if you see something in there that, you know, gee, I don't know if I can meet those insurance requirements, you bid anyway, call Owena and say, you know, gee, can we figure this insurance thing out, or whatever it is. You know, don't just say, gee, I can't do this. Connect and talk, and you might not get that contract, or you might get some help working through the issue. They said, you know, they're willing to negotiate. So if someone says to me that I'm willing to negotiate, I take them at their word. So, so be persistent, you know, stay at it. And, you know, it sounds like there's a lot of opportunity that Blue Cross Blue Shield of Massachusetts is providing. And as I said, as this presentation clearly demonstrated, is willing to provide. So, so thank you again to everyone who made their time available from Blue Cross Blue Shield of Massachusetts. I do want to highlight that our next Doing Business with event is with Boston Children's Hospital. A team from Boston Children's will join us on November 5th at 4 p.m. So put that on your calendar. Stay tuned as we continue to do more and more of these events. In the queue, for example, is John Hancock and Eastern Bank. You can learn more about those programs or the broader series of programs offered by the Greater Boston Chamber of Commerce at bostonchamber.com. Once again, thank you to the team at Blue Cross Blue Shield of Massachusetts and to all of you for participating in today's event. Have a great rest of the day and don't forget to vote.